In the stillness before the dua, the world seems to pause. The air grows heavy, yet tender, as if unseen hands have drawn a curtain between the noise of the earth and the silence of the heavens. A trembling begins in the chest, subtle at first, like the flutter of a bird against the bars of its cage. It is not fear of the world, nor the weight of human eyes, but the soul sensing it stands at the threshold of the divine. The heart whispers, though the lips remain closed. Each breath feels like an offering, each pause like an eternity waiting to be filled with words too sacred to be spoken aloud. This trembling, this shiver of the unseen, is not weakness. It is the sign of awakening, the sign that the prayer about to be uttered carries more than words. It carries the weight of destiny. A seeker once asked his teacher, "Why does my heart quake before I raise my hands in dua?" The teacher smiled, his eyes deep as the night sky. "It trembles," he said, "because it knows the one it is about to face. The body shakes when a king stands before it. What then of the soul when it stands before the King of Kings?" And so the trembling becomes a messenger. It tells the seeker that something eternal stirs beneath the surface. A whisper before the prayer is not an accident. It is the soul's way of kneeling before the words are even spoken. It is the heart's confession that it has reached the door of the unseen, and that door will not open without reverence. The trembling, then, is the first gift, the reminder that every dua begins in silence, where heaven bends low to listen. The trembling deepens when the first words of dua rise to the lips. It is as though the heart recognizes it has crossed into sacred ground, and the self is no longer master of its own voice. A hidden current runs through the veins, urging the soul to bow before the infinite. This first tremor is not born of weakness, but of reverence, a sign that the heart knows who listens beyond the veil. A man once whispered to his companion, "Why does my chest tighten when I begin to call upon him?" The companion lowered his gaze and replied, "Because your soul remembers. It remembers standing before him before you were born, when he asked, 'Am I not your Lord?' And you answered, 'Yes.' Every dua is a return to that moment. The trembling is your spirit recognizing its origin. The silence between words grows alive, each pause heavy with meaning. It is in these moments that the heart feels naked before its creator, unable to hide the truth of its longings, its fears, its unspoken confessions. The tremor is the unveiling of all that has been concealed. Pride dissolves, masks fall away, and the raw essence of the self stands trembling in light. The trembling is the first proof that the soul is awake. For those who live blind to the unseen, words are empty, but for the awakened, every syllable carries eternity within it. And so the seeker learns that the quiver of the heart is not a curse, but a signal. It is the reminder that the dua is not simply heard. It is felt, weighed, and carried to the heavens by unseen hands. And when the trembling comes, the wise do not resist it. They let it flow, for it is the soul's way of saying, "I know where I stand. I know before whom I speak." The trembling does not fade. It grows sharper when the soul confronts what it clings to. Hidden attachments, the weight of desires, the illusions of control, all of them are pulled into the light when the hands rise in dua. The heart shivers because it fears letting go, yet it knows it must. Every worldly chain rattles in that moment, and the trembling is the sound of those chains beginning to break. A young seeker once confessed, "Each time I pray, my heart quakes as if something is being torn away from me." Why high does it hurt to stand before him? His teacher's voice was calm, yet heavy with truth. "It trembles," he said, "because you are being unmasked. The false attachments that pretend to give you life cannot stand in his presence. The pain you feel is not loss, it is release. Your trembling is the moment the rope begins to slip from your hands. The heart trembles not only from love, but from fear. The fear of losing what it thought was essential. Yet in the silence of dua, the soul realizes what it once worshipped was only dust. It shivers because the veil is lifting, revealing a truth it tried to ignore. Nothing lasts but him. And so the trembling becomes a battlefield. On one side stand the shadows of attachment, whispering promises of comfort and control. On the other side stands the light, commanding surrender. The heart shakes in the middle, torn between what it clings to and what it is called toward. This trembling, though painful, is mercy, for it is better to tremble before God in prayer than to tremble before the illusions when they finally break on their own. The soul learns in this shaking that surrender is not weakness, it is freedom. The trembling shifts when the unseen draws near. It is no longer the weight of earthly attachments alone, but the stirring of a presence that cannot be measured by sight. In the silence of dua, the veil thins, and the heart feels what the eyes cannot behold. It quivers as though brushed by an invisible wind, a reminder that the unseen world is closer than the breath in one's chest. A seeker once asked in a hushed voice, "How can my heart sense what my eyes do not see?" His guide replied, "Because the heart is not blind. It trembles when the unseen steps closer, just as the skin shivers when touched by a breeze. You do not see the wind, but you feel its presence. Likewise, you do not see the unseen, but your soul trembles when its nearness wraps around you. The heart shakes because it recognizes a reality, the Biya. Odi cannot name. Angels, unseen witnesses, hover as guardians and scribes. The veil is not torn open, yet the heart feels its edges thinning, and in that thinning lies awe. The trembling becomes the proof of that unseen closeness, the quiet announcement that the worlds beyond have bent nearer to listen, and in that trembling awe takes the shape of surrender. The seeker realizes that dua is not a solitary act whispered into emptiness. It is a call that moves between realms, echoing through spaces where eyes cannot travel. The heart trembles because it knows it is not alone. The trembling here is not terror, but reverence, not despair, but recognition. It is the shiver of a soul standing between two worlds, its roots in the earth, its voice reaching heaven. And the seeker learns that when the veil stirs, trembling is the soul's only honest response. The trembling deepens when the fire within is stirred. Every dua carries with it not only longing, but also the hidden weight of sins, regrets, and unspoken wounds. The heart quivers because the light of prayer burns against the darkness it carries inside. What was buried begins to surface, and the soul feels the flames of purification licking at its edges. A weary man once said, "When I lift my hands, I feel as though my chest is on fire. It hurts to call upon him." His teacher looked at him with gentle eyes. "It is not destruction," he said softly. "It is cleansing. The trembling you feel is the burning away of burdens you can no longer carry. Every fire that rises within you in prayer is mercy in disguise. It hurts only because the soul is being remade. The trembling is the sound of chains breaking, the echo of hidden sins crumbling into ash. The body shakes because the soul is being asked to let go of what it clung to for too long. The fire within does not consume to destroy. It consumes to refine. And so the seeker learns that trembling is not always born of fear, nor even of awe. Sometimes it is born of pain, the pain of confronting what lies hidden beneath the surface. But even this pain is a gift, for it is the pain of healing. The heart trembles as the fire burns, but once the ashes settle, it will rise lighter, freer, and closer to the one who listens. For no dua ascends without leaving behind some part of what weighs the soul down. The trembling is simply the sound of the fire doing its work. The trembling does not end with fire. It shifts again, carrying the weight of something even greater. The soul begins to sense that every dua is not just a plea but a thread woven into the fabric of destiny. The heart shakes because it stands on the edge of change, its whispers echoing into realms where futures are written. In this trembling lies both wonder and terror, for the words spoken now may alter the path of tomorrow. A seeker once asked his guide, "Do our prayers truly shape what is to come, or are they only cries against what is already written?" The guide closed his eyes, as if listening to a distant echo. "Both," he answered. "The trembling you feel is the weight of that mystery. Your dua is like a stone cast into a vast river. It does not stop the flow, but it changes the ripples. And sometimes, those ripples are the difference between despair and deliverance. The trembling becomes the soul's recognition that it stands at a crossroads. Each word released is not a sound vanishing into silence, but a mark inscribed on eternity. The heart quakes because it knows that in this sacred moment, destinies bend, paths shift, and veils of possibility are lifted. It is here that fear and hope collide most fiercely. The seeker realizes that every syllable may carry the weight of unseen futures, and so the trembling deepens, for to call upon the divine is to step into a river whose currents shape what lies ahead. The heart does not tremble without reason. It trembles because it knows nothing uttered in sincerity before God is ever wasted. Every plea becomes an echo in the halls of destiny, shaping what is yet unseen. The trembling grows sharper when the seeker remembers that they are never alone in their prayer. Every whispered word is heard not only by the Lord of all things, but also witnessed by unseen beings who record, who guard, who carry the supplications upward. The heart quivers because it knows its secrets are not hidden. Even in solitude, it is surrounded by silent witnesses of light. A disciple once whispered, "If Allah already knows what is in my heart, why do angels stand beside me, writing every word?" His master replied, "Because your trembling is not only for you, it is testimony. The angels bear witness that you stood, that you spoke, that you reached out to your Lord. They carry your dua as a jewel, presenting it before the throne. They write not because he does not know. They write so that you may never forget." The trembling intensifies with this realization. The soul is never voiceless. Each plea is escorted, each tear is carried. The quiver in the chest is the echo of a greater truth, that the heavens themselves take notice when the servant bows and whispers in longing. And so the seeker begins to see the trembling differently. It is no longer merely fear or awe. It is reverence before a gathering unseen, a courtroom of light where every prayer is preserved, the hands that shake, the voice that falters. All of it is witnessed and held as eternal evidence of the heart's surrender. The heart trembles because it is being inscribed into eternity. And though the world may forget, the unseen never does. Every shiver is testimony that the soul has been heard. The trembling deepens when the heart stands between two vast oceans, fear and hope. Fear that the dua will rise yet remain unanswered, and hope that it will be embraced by the one whose mercy knows no bounds. The heart quivers in this tension, torn between dread and longing, unsure which wave will carry it. A seeker once asked, "What if my prayer is not accepted? What if my trembling is in vain?" The teacher looked at him with compassion. "The trembling itself," he said, "is a sign of acceptance. For if your dua were lifeless, your heart would remain still. But your shaking shows your soul is alive. The fear sharpens your sincerity, and the hope pulls you forward. Without both, your prayer would have no wings." The trembling then becomes the bridge. On one side stands despair, whispering that the door may never open. On the other stands hope, shining with the promise that every call is heard. The heart trembles in the middle, pulled by both forces, yet held steady by faith. It is in this trembling that the soul learns its greatest lesson, that fear and hope are not enemies but companions. Fear humbles, hope uplifts. Together they carve the trembling into sincerity, shaping a prayer that pierces the heavens. And so the seeker discovers that the trembling is not weakness, but balance. It is the sign of a soul that neither takes God's mercy for granted nor loses trust in his compassion. The heart shakes because it knows both his justice and his love, and it dares to stand between them, whispering, "Answer me, for I am yours." The trembling reaches its peak when the soul stands before the door of transformation. It is here that every quiver, every silent shiver of the heart, becomes the key to a new beginning. Just as a seed must crack open before it can bloom, the heart must tremble before it can be remade. The shaking is the sign that the old self is breaking, and he, new one, is ready to be born. A student once asked his guide, "Why does it feel as if I am falling apart each time I raise my hands? Why do I feel weaker after I pray?" The guide answered with a voice steady as stone, "Because what you once were is being undone. The trembling is not weakness, it is labor. You are giving birth to the self God intended you to be. To tremble is to grow, to shake is to transform." The heart trembles because it stands on the threshold of change, where what was familiar is stripped away and what is eternal is planted in its place. It shakes not because it is fragile, but because the weight of transformation is heavy. Every dua pulls the soul closer to a new shape, a new destiny, a new way of seeing the world. The trembling here is holy. It is the sound of a soul's walls collapsing so that the light may enter. It is the breaking that makes room for what is greater. The seeker comes to understand that without trembling there is no crossing. Without trembling the door remains closed. And so the heart quivers, knowing that its shaking is the very act of surrender. And surrender, in the language of the divine, is the beginning of true strength. The trembling does not fade into silence. It blossoms into transformation. What began as weakness now reveals itself as strength, for the heart has learned that its quiver is not a flaw, but a signal of awakening. Every tremble was a rehearsal for this moment, the unveiling of a soul forever changed. A seeker once whispered through tears, "How will I know when I have been transformed? How will I know if my trembling has reached him?" The teacher placed his hand over the seeker's chest and replied, "You will know when the trembling no longer feels like fear, but like love. You will know when the quiver is not the cry of weakness, but the song of surrender. That is when you will rise from prayer a different soul than the one who entered it." The heart trembles because it has touched eternity. It has stood at the edge of the unseen, confessed its hidden truths, shed its chains, felt the fire of purification, and glimpsed the vastness of destiny. And in each moment, trembling was the mark of the soul being written into something greater. The trembling now becomes a companion, no longer feared, no longer misunderstood. It is the gentle reminder that the soul has crossed the threshold and cannot return unchanged. What shakes within is proof that God has drawn near, and when he draws near, nothing remains the same. And so the seeker rises, still trembling, but now with a trembling of love. The prayer that began in silence has ended in transformation. The whisper has become a roar within the soul, declaring that the one who trembled has been remade. The trembling is not the end. It is the beginning. It is the soul's quiet testimony that it has stood before the divine and walked away forever changed.